within the moment. And don't go wait until the morning. You never know when it is over. All that I know is they'll get older. So let us dance this night away.
What is up, guys? Welcome. Make sure the volume is going on. Awesome. Welcome. Episode 2 of the Professional Wingman podcast. It is yours truly, Thomas Edwards, founder and coach of the Professional Wingman. It feels good to be here on a Good Friday for those who celebrate. For others, just happy Friday. I'm really excited to talk about today's topic because I feel like it's something that so many of my clients, and I know people that I know, struggle with. Doesn't matter what industry you're from, what you're going through, whether it's relationships or more personal. It's something that we all have to endure, which is overcoming self-sabotage. Now, you may not know what are signs of self-sabotage, and so that's what this podcast is going to teach you. It's also going to teach you how to overcome past hurdles. So we're going to jump into that in a little bit. Now, normally I don't really talk about things like this. Usually when you see me, I'm talking about pretty much all things dating and relationships. And I will still continue to talk about things like that. But what I've realized is after doing this for 15 plus years, helping well over 400 people get married, have kids, live the life, 0 divorces, I realized that when guys came to me, and women, it wasn't because they just wanted to be in a relationship. It wasn't because they just wanted to have kids and get married and have a family. They wanted to be the best version of themselves that got to live the best life that they possibly could. And they saw that relationships was a gateway to making that happen. And in the tens of thousands of hours of being out working with people, I've realized that I personally am capable of much more than just helping people find love. I've helped people find themselves. One of the most important relationships that we get to navigate in our lives is probably the most important relationship, which is with ourselves. And I'm proud to say that, for 15 years, I've helped people navigate that and build stronger relationships with themselves. And there's so many philosophies, tools, methodologies, strategies that have helped my clients enhance their relationship with themselves. And I want to share them with you guys moving forward. So I even made like a Facebook post not too long ago about how the Professional Wingman is no longer a dating coaching company. I am no longer a dating coach. I'm just a coach who runs a coaching company. And I expect, because that's the standard that I'm setting for myself, I expect that this is going to help a lot more people. It's going to create new adventures and opportunities for me and others. And it's going to allow the Professional Wingman to be around for 15 more years and beyond that. So if you have any questions, have any comments, I would love to see you wherever you are, whether it's on Instagram, Facebook Live, YouTube, on X. Shoot a comment. I'll see it here and we can have a discussion and we can talk about these things. But whether it's in dating or in other areas of life, self-sabotage is something that comes up. So I'm going to share with you the 5 signs of self-sabotage and how do you overcome that and its connection with the past. How do you overcome the past? And this is going to be fun. I'm excited about this. And I wrote down my notes here. So if you see me kind of looking off screen, it's because I have my notes here on a second screen. But let's get right into it. So let's talk about the past. I'm not a therapist, and shout out to therapists. I love you guys. You guys have helped me a ton. There's 2 therapists that I personally worked with. One name's Bill, the other one's Mark. Incredible. they helped me understand my past so I can have a better present. And what I've also learned that is in coaching, we use the past as context, but it's not where we coach from. We coach from the present, and then we help create a better future. And I feel like that's where the difference is between therapists and a coach. And that's why I believe having both as a resource is really valuable. They don't do the same thing, but they can have incredible impact just the same. But let's talk about the past. When we focus on the past, that is a sign that we are subconsciously creating self-sabotage opportunities, self-sabotage behavior. You know, people who are focusing on the past, it's the analogy we hear all the time, right? It's like you're driving down the road, but you're looking at the rearview mirror where there's this tiny space. When you have a huge windshield in front of you, able to look at your present and look towards the horizon. And when you dwell on these past experiences, when we dwell on these events and we carry them with us, we not only are carrying what could be lessons that we can leverage, but we're carrying the emotions, we're carrying sometimes the trauma, sometimes we're just carrying the bitterness of that experience, and we're letting it dictate and we're letting it affect our present state, our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviors. And so when we dwell on that, we bring the emotion with us there, and then it makes it difficult for us to move forward. You ever had that experience? You're thinking about the past and somehow it's affecting your present. You're not feeling like you're motivated. You don't feel like you have it in you to overcome the challenge that's in front of you. Well, that's because you're bringing the energy of the past into the present. And what this does is it perpetuates a cycle of repeating the past. So if you're in this space where you're constantly thinking about the past and what you did or did not do, and you're worried about that repeating itself, chances are it's going to repeat itself, because what you're thinking about is what actually manifests. And what you have to decide to do is take a moment to assess the past, the actual experience from an objective point of view. Decide what kind of narrative that you want to have, and ideally make it one that's productive, one that's going to give you lessons that you can use in the present moment and create a different future. And when you're present in the moment and you're focusing on the future, it becomes key to avoiding going back into the past. We all know we can't change the past. We oftentimes find ourselves thinking about it, wishing that we could. Now, if we took that energy and brought ourselves in the present moment, wishing for a better future, that's something that we can actually control. That's something that we can actually do something about. And so take the lessons of the past. Don't take the experience. Cleanse yourself of the experience. Take the lessons of the past and then move forward. Create a different future. So that's number one. Number two, focusing on what you don't have. When you're living in lack, you're not living in abundance. And when you're seeing lack and you're thinking about lack, guess what? Your environment becomes a source of lack. Your behaviors, your thoughts, your feelings, your behaviors become sources of lack. And people who self-sabotage and they're thinking from this place, they fixate, they really focus on the things that they don't have, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a healthy body or a fit body, levels of intelligence, levels of money, connections, influence. We start to look at what other people have, and then we assess it compared to what we don't have, and we see ourselves as less than. And what this really does is when you're thinking about lack, you're feeling lack, you start to replicate that in your life. You don't see yourself as capable of receiving more. That abundance mindset doesn't show up. And I could share a personal story around this. I remember growing up, we didn't live a poor life, so to speak, but there was always things that I wanted. I loved toys. I particularly loved video games, and I would always every Sunday my dad would, get the Sunday paper and it had all the sale stuff. And I would always dig and I would find Toys R Us. Toys R Us had the best for me, that was what I wanted to check out. And I would go through and I'd see all the cool toys that were coming out and toys that I wanted. And I would run in my room and I would make a list of all the things that I wanted. And I'd put the price next to it and I would add it up and look at it because I love math. I was a nerd that way. And obviously it was this inordinate number. And in that moment, every time I did that, when I got to that place, I went from the feeling of having these things to all of a sudden feeling the lack of not just not having these things, but not feeling possible, like not feeling able to acquire these things. It felt so insurmountable. And I didn't understand as a kid at the time that was what was going on. So every Sunday I was doing this. I'd grab the Toys R Us and I would add up all the things. And my birthday came around or Christmas came around, I had this list that I was holding on to, feeling the high of what it would be like to have these things, and then feeling the low of the lack. And it just kept replicating. And even to this day, I have to be mindful about looking at what I have and what I don't have and focusing on what I do have and being grateful for that. Gratitude is ultimately the key to being that sign of self-sabotage. And it becomes the antidote, so to speak, of self-sabotage. When you're feeling a sense of lack, what you got to do is look at what you do have and how grateful you are to have those things. Because whatever you do have, there's someone out there who does not. That includes a bed that you sleep in. That includes a house that you get to go and live in. That includes the food that's in the fridge, the water that's running out of the faucets, the soap that's in your bathroom, the clothes that you're currently wearing. There are people out there who don't have any of these things. It seems trivial. We almost take advantage. We take it for granted these days because it's just something that's a part of our everyday lives. But when we start there and start to think about how grateful we are for the things that we do get to have, it starts to change our frame. It starts to change our mentality around what truly is lack. And soon enough, you end up finding yourself realizing that there is no lack. There's always abundance everywhere, no matter where you look. And if you're still not sure, look outside your window. Go out for a walk in nature and see the epitome of abundance around you. See how right now in the spring season, we're seeing trees bear leaves. Some trees are bearing fruit. Grass is growing. Flowers are blooming. It wasn't so long ago, maybe less than a few weeks ago, that all that was bare and dry and brown. And now it's becoming lush and colorful and green. I mean, that is the epitome of abundance. Nature knows that it is abundant. And we, as a part of nature, should also practice that as well. So that's number 2, experiencing lack. Number 3, I alluded to it in this one, which is comparing yourself to others. I mean, I'll tell you something, anytime I compare myself to anyone else, it is a guaranteed loss. I will always find myself feeling less than, feeling worse off. And, when I think about, and a great example, actually, to look at this is when you're scrolling online, right? We're on social media right now. I don't know what you were doing before. Maybe you were scrolling a little bit. Checking with yourself. How's your self-esteem? Or how was your self-esteem before coming in here? Were you feeling less than because you were watching everyone's glamour shots, their best snapshots, their the greatest versions of that particular moment in their lives? It's interesting. I mean, you can look at so many different social media profiles and all you see is the best of themselves. And after a while, when you're scrolling and you're taking a look at your life and how grossly sanitized it is, you start to wonder once again, am I living the life that I want? You start to feel lack. You start to feel dissatisfied. You start to feel unhappy about your life. And then those feelings of dissatisfaction and happiness lead to counterproductive behavior that can ultimately hold you back. It's unfair to compare your current situation to someone else's best situation. There are times where I've seen people have fights before they take their shot. their picture and post it online. I've seen people struggle with their lives and then to use that same struggle to try to create this glamour shot, making it seem like everything's okay. I've been doing that. I was doing that back in the 20 teens when I wasn't going through a rough patch. No one would know because you'd look at my social media and everything looked like my life was awesome. And there were elements of my life that were awesome, but internally, I was not awesome. And no one knew until it was almost too late. So what I'm saying to this is don't look at someone's best and compare it to your worst. That is a guaranteed L that you're going to take, and it's not going to make you feel good. Comparison is also considered a thief of joy. We commonly hear that, right? There's many thieves of joy. Comparison is one of those thieves. And when we do that, it can lead us to self-sabotage. If there are goals, and I'll phrase this as a question. What are some goals that you have not allowed yourself to go after because you're seeing someone else chase them doing pretty well, and now you're thinking you can't do it? How many goals have you given up on because you've seen other people do it and you don't think that you can stack up because you're comparing where you are right now to where they are, which might be steps ahead of you, but you're using that as a self-sabotage tool to not go after what you want. There are so many guys that I end up working with who were intimidated to work with me because they thought I was so far ahead of the game when it came to dating and relationships. Well, as a coach, you want to find that person who is. And at the same time, I'm just a dude like anyone else. I'm not perfect. I will never claim that I'm perfect. But I've done this enough to know what's going on. And the only difference between me and a client typically is experience, sometimes skill set, but most importantly, confidence. That usually is the difference maker. So when you compare yourself to other people, it's a surefire way to lower your confidence. So don't do that. Try not to compare yourself to those people who are so far above you. Use them as a measuring stick to strive towards, but don't compare yourself to those people. And by the way, like, this is where gratitude also comes into play. It's not like we go the opposite way and all of a sudden we're walking down the street and we see a homeless person and we praise the fact that we're better off than that person. That's not going to feel right to many of us. But gratitude is what really grounds us. And it is the true antidote to self-sabotage. Once again, going back to seeing that homeless person and saying, wow, like, that could be me. I could be the one that is sitting there or standing there, not feeling like they have a home to go to. That could just as easily be any of us right there, a fellow human. And so taking that time to really just be grateful for what you have and not compare yourself to other people's best, because we just don't know what's on the other side of that lens. So that's number 3, comparing yourself to others. Number 4, now we're getting into other things, focusing on things that you cannot control. This is one of my favorite ones. When we obsess over events, people, places, environments that are beyond our control, it's easy for us to be frustrated, to feel like we're limited or restricted in what we can and cannot do. And I like to say it from people, places, and things and experiences. I think when we watch the news, it's a great example of that. Mainstream media has figured it out. The way to put you in a state of paralysis is to overwhelm you with things that you cannot control, but get so wrapped up into it that you're overwhelmed and you can't do anything. And in that state, you are susceptible to programming. And that is a whole nother conversation altogether. However, when we get wrapped up into what we cannot control with our own hands, with our own mind, and our own body, we are giving up our power. And we're using that energy over something that cannot change. We don't have the ability to change certain things that go on in this world, especially things that are going on the other side of the world. And it's so easy to get wrapped up in that. And listen, being informed and knowing what's going on the other side of the world, that it is important. It is important to have a worldly sense. I mean, what a gift that today's age has given us that can allow us to know what's going on around the world at any time of the day. I think that's absolutely incredible. And it allows us to connect in ways that we never were able to connect before. And trying to control the uncontrollable is futile. It's going to sabotage any efforts that you make to try to control the things that you can. This is why I love the Serenity Prayer. Serenity Prayer is such a great moment of pause. You know, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. There are just things that I cannot change. I cannot change people. I cannot change places. I cannot change events. I can't. And I have to accept that. And that's easier said than done. I work on that every single day. I cannot change my daughter. I cannot control her. I cannot do those things. I have to accept that. And for the things that I can control, which are my thoughts, my feelings, my behaviors, that requires courage. I have the courage, and I can at least garner the courage to change those things. And having the wisdom to know the difference is key. And the wisdom comes over time. So staying, focus your energy. And here's, focus your energy on what you can influence and control in your life. Think about those things. Are you taking time to become aware and focus on your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviors? And how much are the things that you cannot control influencing your thoughts, your feelings, and behaviors? I have plenty of my clients who I work with who they have to take a social media detox or a news detox because they've wrapped themselves up in that so much that it's become an addiction. The emotion of the fear, the emotion of needing to know, the emotion of getting wrapped up in the drama of things becomes an addiction for them, and they have to break free by doing a true detox. Just like detoxing from anything that is harmful for us, whether it's physically or mentally or spiritually. So focusing on things that you can influence, things that you can control is going to give you significant growth and a significant edge over those who are still wrapped up in the game of what they can't control. And number five is a little sneaky. I wanted to figure out how to describe it. It's a little sneaky. And it's about getting discouraged. We're all afraid of rejection, period. Let's not play games. Let's not, fool around or fool ourselves and think that we don't want to be rejected. Even the greatest of salesmen and salespeople, they don't like rejection. They don't like being told no matter how great they are. No one likes that. However, when that no happens, how do we respond? If we allow ourselves to get discouraged, that's going to be a great opportunity to introduce some self-sabotage. When you lose courage, now you're losing the courage to do the things that you can control. You're allowing these setbacks, these rejections, these negative experiences to hold you back from what you ultimately want. Now, all of a sudden, these experiences are holding more power than the dream that you ultimately envisioned, that you were chasing after. We can't let these things that will end up being really small events in the grand scheme of things, really small events in the timeline, in the pursuit of your dream, to get in the way of you getting there. The key is when these things happen, when you have a setback or a failure, this is all feedback to help you learn, have lessons on how to be better the next time, how to improve your chances. That'd be the same as if you were to go out and apply for a job, for example, and they came back to you and said you weren't a good fit, and all of a sudden you're like, you know what? I can't do this. I'm just not going to apply anymore. I can't take the rejection. After a while, you wouldn't allow that to happen because one, you need to eat, and so you need to make money to eat. But two, there's something out there that you want, and you're going to let one person stop you from being able to have the dream that you want. Can't let that happen. The courage needs to be sustained. This is where we talk about resilience. How well can you bounce back from a setback or a challenge? And so being able to take a step back, learning from the experience, continuing to be courageous, and most importantly, moving forward. You notice how the first thing I said was dwelling in the past? Well, when a setback happens, after a while, it becomes something that happened, meaning it's in the past. And it's a great opportunity for you to look at that experience, assess it, grab the things that you learned from it, and bring it with you to move forward. We bring the emotions into the next situation, the next event, the next interaction, the next relationship. Those energies come with it. And it can sabotage your chances of having a better any of those things. So, discouragement is a very sneaky thing because it shows up in so many different ways, whether it's you having a clear setback or rejection, but it also could be maybe lack of progress, lack of speed of progress. Maybe you're progressing, but you're not progressing at the rate or at the pace that you want to. That can lead to discouragement. You might soon forget that you've made tremendous progress, but because you're feeling stuck, that becomes discouragement for you to maybe question the whole thing, maybe even want to quit. So we have to see discouragement as that tool that can bring in negative forces to hold you back from your dream. And what we got to do is we got to take those experiences, once again, learn from them, use the lessons, and help you move forward in a courageous way. And so just to recap, and these are just things, these 5 symptoms of self-sabotage. Well, when you focus on the past, when you focus on what you don't have, when you compare yourself to others, when you focus on things you can't control, and you allow yourself to be discouraged, that is a tall hill to climb and a huge boulder to push up it. So when you pay attention to these 5 things, which one of these 5 things really stands out to you as the thing that tends to hold you back the most? Are you someone who dwells in the past? Are you someone who likes to focus on things you can't control? i.e. maybe watch the news and get all wrapped up in the drama of that? Are you someone who can easily get discouraged because you experience a setback or a challenge? What is that one thing? And what will you do to not only become aware of it, but to do something about it? How will you stop focusing on the past and focus more on what you can do today for a better future? How can you focus less on what you don't have and be grateful for what you do have? How can you see comparison more like a game of achievement, game of aspiration to aspire to that, not just see what they have and what you don't have? What can you do to focus more on things you can control, like your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviors? How can you take setbacks and turn them, alchemize them into lessons that can encourage you, not discourage you, encourage you to move forward with more experience, more wisdom, better skill set, maybe even more confidence. I've seen so many of my clients go through this process in real time. I've seen them just even in their body shift over the course of hours from focusing and comparison and dwelling and really allowing themselves to be present with themselves and understand what they're after, what they're chasing after. How can they take the lessons that they learn and help them move forward in an effective, productive way? How this is all a game, not a game against each other. We can make it like that, but it doesn't have to be, but a game against ourselves. Me versus the best version of me. Or as Matthew McConaughey would say, chasing that 10-year version, that version of you 10 years from now. I love that. I love the idea of sitting with that version of me 10 years from now and talking with him, chasing him, getting to know who he is, what he embodies, and starting learning those things, implementing those things today so I can chase him down. I know I'm not going to chase him down because that 10-year version of me is still going to be doing things way ahead of me. But that's really the true comparison that I want to aspire to. That's truly the game that I want to play, that I'm playing now. So I want to wrap this up is, the root cause of self-sabotage is often related to someone's core identity, who they believe themselves to be, their character, if you will, and the beliefs, their concepts about themselves, their self-worth, familiarity with experiences. They all play a role in whether or not we have a tendency to self-sabotage. And when we can start shifting ourselves from these 5 symptoms and we focus more on faith in ourselves, maybe even faith in a higher power, one that I like to call God, intention, really being intentional with our actions, having the courage to implement these actions, and really seeing things not always as positive, but productive, proactive, if you will. Sometimes positivity is not enough. We can only have so much positive thinking until we're stuck in the thinking. We need to be proactive and productive in our journey towards our dreams. And when you're able to put all that together, I believe that is the formula for overcoming self-sabotage. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this. Really excited to do more episodes like this. If you liked this, please comment below, hit that like button. I would love for you guys to subscribe and just hit that bell, get notified whenever I go live again. And it's just a pleasure. If you're someone who has struggled with self-sabotage, you're finding yourself going through different iterations and stages in your life, doesn't matter what area of life it is, and you're finding yourself looking at that glass ceiling, and as soon as you feel like you're about to break through, something happens, something holds you back. I've been there many, many times. In fact, I had a discussion with a group of friends yesterday about the idea of self-sabotage, just the feeling of whether or not we can leverage opportunities that are presented to us. Opportunities won't come to you if you actually believe that you're not worthy of them. They won't even show up. But when opportunities show up, that means there was something that was inside of you that called that in. And it's your mind that's trying to trick you into believing that you're not worthy of that. And when we spend less time here and spend more time getting to know the voice that's here, we soon come to realize that we are worthy of so much more. And if you are hearing this and you're saying to yourself, yeah, I am worthy of so much more. How do I get that out of me? Well, then let's have a conversation. reach out to me. Go to theprofessionalwingman.com/apply, and we can set up a time where I'll reach out to you personally and we can figure out what that game plan can look like to bring out the best in you so you can go out and live the best life and be able to create the best impact in the world. So I appreciate you guys. Hope you guys have a great weekend ahead. And I will be back soon for episode 3. Surprises await. All right. Take care, guys. Let's level up our lives.